So I think this is our last talk for the day. And we're privileged to have Binyamin Barsch. He's going to talk about forming a Python career in a tech hype through education. A round of applause for Binyamin.
Thank you, everyone. Can everybody hear me? All good. So good afternoon. Molweni, Sanibona, Dumalang, Jambo. Anybody speak Swahili? Nice, okay. Cool, thanks. So I'll be speaking about framing a Python career in a tech hype through education. So why did I choose this talk? Well, I wanted to do something for PyCon Africa, and I didn't know what to talk about, so I decided to web scrape PyCon talks since 2012 and PyCon Africa since 2019 and get a trend of the talks that were done. And one thing I saw that wasn't spoken about much is careers and jobs and things related to that. So I thought that'd be quite interesting to speak about, because careers are quite important to our day-to-day life. I mean, we get a salary from our careers if we have a job, and it gives us freedom to do many things. So I thought this is important to speak about. And also my career as a Python software engineer wasn't quite conventional. So as I started thinking about this topic, I tried to look at certain things I asked myself throughout my Python career. So I had these questions in my mind as I started my career. At first as a student, like how to get a job. It's quite daunting for a student. You've studied for this time, and you want to get a job. How do you go about that process? Then another question is, is Python career a good choice for you? I mean, is it so relevant? You can make a salary out of it, and is it relevant? And then as you go along, you learn Python, and then you think about, well, what is the best tech stack to use, Python related or others? And then as you go on, you get more experience. How do you start? How do you grow in your career as well? Grow your certain skills. Maybe the current place you're working for doesn't have growth in it. Maybe you want a better salary. There's various factors why you want to grow your career. And more recently, will AI take my job? Right, so this is something that many people have spoken about, especially in media. Will AI take my job? And I'll address this a bit later. And lastly, what do I speak about at PyCon Africa? So I think I sorted that one out. So let's see what else I have to speak about. So I'm going to discuss a few things. Firstly, my own experience, because I think helping people understand others, your careers, can help them with theirs. And I'm going to speak about what's happening on the ground. I'm going to take two surveys, one from Stack Overflow, one from OfferZen, and get their perspective of what's happening with Python careers. And I'm also going to touch on a bit about education with Python careers. So let me frame my Python career for you. I came from robotics background. I did mechatronic engineering and at Stellenbosch University, and we did very little coding training, right? We did like some simulations with like MATLAB type software, and then we did firmware coding specifically for hardware. I mean that was like my training, formal training at university. I didn't have formal software dev training like computer scientists do. And then eventually I found a job very similar to firmware development in a company called FlightScope, which I worked there for about 10 years or so. But my job was focusing on firmware development, so hardware application type coding, and I had Python on the side. And the more Python I was doing, the more I just really enjoyed it. I was kind of moving away from the C++ coding environment to more Python. I try to find more and more ways I can incorporate Python to my daily day-to-day job. So in 2014, I thought, like, can I actually change careers? Can I actually have a Python career? I don't have formal training in it. I mean, I'm not from a CS background. Can I actually change careers? So I started to reflect on the skills that I need to have and whatnot. And then eventually I thought, okay, if I want to do that, I first need to become something. What is that? An imposter? Not really, but it's something that crops in your mind once you're trying to change your career. But truly, I tried to change my perspective on. I want to become a dedicated Python developer, software engineer in Python specifically. So again, I had to look at that, assess my skill set, and compare that to what I needed to do. So it was time to level up, or if you're an imposter, fake it until you make it. But in any case, time to develop my skills that I lacked, in the formal training I didn't have that a computer scientist would have. So through that process, I started seeing Python everywhere. Just like Neo saw the Matrix, I saw Python everywhere. Everything I was doing my day-to-day job, I tried to implement Python everywhere. Data science projects and web apps, and even tried MicroPython, although not as good as C and C++, for microcontrollers, OpenCV, computer vision projects. After time, my confidence grew, and so did the imposter syndrome. And eventually found an opportunity to change careers, and eventually I took it. So what's this whole point of the story is that the imposter syndrome was, important part of my career path, because I had to change what my perspective was of my training and my job title to something completely different. Not completely different, but I lack skills. And in that, as an imposter syndrome, we know you don't feel adequate, you don't have the skills to actually fill the job or whatnot. Or if you get that job, you might ask yourself, like, why did they hire me? And then if you're in that job, you don't want to ask like other people for help, because you might think you're not adequate enough for the skills. So, and that's a fairly healthy response. You don't have those skills, you feel you're not adequate, and the natural or the proper response is that you will upskill yourself, you'll develop, and you'll get to that point where you're confident enough to perform. So something interesting happened over the past few years with AI, something I like to call the imposter syndrome paradox, where the normal response for imposter syndrome is that you'll level up, you'll develop your skills. But now with AI, I don't need to. I can just ask ChatGPT. I can ask Cursor to do the work for me. So the outcome might be the same, but the basis isn't there. You don't have the core fundamental skills that are necessary to actually perform. So a question is, again, as I mentioned earlier, will AI take my job? So if you flip that around, can you do AI's job? If you can, well, then you have nothing to worry about. So now I'm going to speak about other aspects, that are related to Python careers in a tech hype, specifically focusing on AI. And I'm taking stats from 2 surveys that were done from Stack Overflow and OfferZen. So the first one focused, this is a 2025 developer survey, where 50,000 people responded to it over countries around the world, and focusing on different technologies as well, not just Python, but various tech stacks, including new focus on AI agents and tools. The other survey is from OfferZen, and they took about 5,000 people that did the survey, and in terms of a South African context, and I think this is also relevant, for us to gauge what is the South African context in tech hype. So just to give you some idea of the Stack Overflow survey, a majority of people that responded were from USA, Germany, and India, and importantly, most developers have been coding for 10 plus years, which is quite useful in terms of understanding the impact of AI agents and tools in the current climate, and the response as well. How does it respond? And this is useful as on the ground to see what the responses are. So one of the questions I asked in the beginning, what I raised is Python still relevant? So it's quite interesting in 2025 that Python's adoption has increased by 7 percentage points from 2024. And they gather from this is because its ability to be the go-to language for AI, data science, and the back-end development. So if you're wondering, is AI so relevant? Yeah, it pretty much is. And also if you, again, a junior developer, those other skills mentioned, they're also relevant if you up and coming, to look at those skills to develop in yourself: JavaScript, HTML, SQL, Python, and Bash. Another stat that I found interesting is 1 in 4 developers are happy at their job, which means the others aren't. They were complacent or they're not happy at the job, and that again is forms part of your Python career. Or career in general. You'll find your current job is not suitable for whatever reason, salary or growth, or maybe the location as well. So there's various things that impact why a person isn't happy at their job. In terms of moving to like the AI influence, a vast majority of developers indicating they worked with OpenAI GPT tools in the past year. And 84% are using AI tools specifically. So I'm just highlighting the importance of, or the difference between AI tools versus AI agents. So there's quite a big percentage using AI tools. However, a majority of the developers don't use AI agents, right? So almost 38% don't use AI agents. And if you look at the next stat, more developers actively distrust the accuracy of AI tools and then trust it, which is interesting. If you remember, the largest cohort of the people that did this were experienced developers, people that 10 plus years of experience don't trust the accuracy of AI tools. So if they don't, this would correlate quite closely to why they wouldn't trust AI agents, where just let the AI agent take control. So another stat I found quite interesting is that I thought Stack Overflow would get less usage over the years, since ChatGPT and the AI tools came more popular. But it's quite interesting that Stack Overflow is becoming a new resource for developers that need to solve AI-related issues, right? So people that are vibe coding and they get stuck with the tool agent, they actually go back to Stack Overflow to kind of figure out what the problem is. So lastly, with this survey, is AI a threat to your job? Well, confidence, this is again what they mentioned. Confidence is slipping among developers when it comes to the perceived threat of AI to their livelihood. 64% believed AI is not a threat to the job, a decrease from 68% last year. So again, as we are kind of navigating the understanding of AI and how it impacts our careers, there's a trend that people have don't believe it is much of a threat. So the next survey is a local survey from OfferZen. So this is also, I think the insights were very useful for people that are interested in Python careers and want to develop it. And there was mentioning that leveraging AI to maintain outputs with smaller teams is a bigger focus. On top of that, developers must directly support company outcomes or risk being sidelined. The industry is evolving as AI reshapes the tech landscape. Knowing how to write great code is no longer a differentiator. It is now an expectation. So what sets great devs apart is how they apply that code. So what does that mean for your career? In a nutshell, you can no longer have it all. Trade-offs are part of the deal. So you might not get remote work or better pay. You have to trade off between what you can do or what you can get. So I'm not sure if you can see this, but this is a salary scale. On the x-axis is the years of experience, y-axis is the actual salary. And I took the middle between 4 to 6 years. I just took a snapshot of that, what the salaries look like. And this just gives you an idea for various developers, not just specifically Python, but various other programming languages, what the type of salaries you'll be expecting from different cities across South Africa. Pretoria 54,000, and then Cape Town, Joburg, Durban under that. In terms of the languages specifically, this is also, again, I took between 4 to 6 years of experience. I guess it's more relevant for the junior to developers. But again, this gives you an understanding of where Python lies, since we are at a Python conference, where Python lies, and you can see it's the third best paid programming language in South Africa. And obviously, as you go as you go with more 10 plus years experience, the salary increases to 100,000 and plus for the various languages. But again, Python is still there as a top 3. Another, other stat which I thought is interesting is, remote workplaces. So majority of people that responded using a hybrid model still. It hasn't changed much between 2024 and 2025. Seems a hybrid model will stick around. And working from the office, are you productive? Well, most people said, 80% said they don't think they're more productive in working in the office itself. In terms of developer location, I'm not sure if you can see the top 2, but Cape Town is. Cape Town and Joburg are the top 2 places in terms of people that responded with a survey and where they are working, and in terms of the demographic. Then you get Pretoria, Durban, and Stellenbosch. So one interesting insight they gathered from this was Joburg and Cape Town remain the largest tech hubs, but they attract different types of developers. Cape Town is more for startups, and developers in the city to work in smaller product-driven companies. Whereas Joburg are nearly twice as likely to work for bigger corporations in the heart of banking and consulting, making an ideal city for developers who prefer working in fintech and larger enterprises. And again, the top industries that were mentioned here was fintech, SaaS development, and consulting, and then web development. Those were the industries where developers work the most. This is quite interesting insight I'd like to also touch on as well, which is the developer's highest level of education. So the highest level of education is bachelor's degree, and then diploma, honors, and then lowest is PhD. So if you want to be a developer, don't worry about getting a PhD. But the insight was quite interesting here, was tech has long been celebrated for meritocratic nature, right? You're based on merit, right? Where skills and mindset matter more than formal training. However, the majority of developers have a university degree. And for developers without a degree, startups tend to focus on less formal qualifications and more on skills. On the other hand, enterprise companies tend to have stricter, degree requirements. That just reflects in the devs that these companies are more likely to hire somebody with a bachelor degree. And I can testify that, for certain companies I know, there's literally bands, hiring bands. You have a bachelor degree, this is your pay scale. And it, depends on, your amount of experience can, adjust how you will get paid. But unfortunately, it's not purely based on merit in the South African context. Even if you have 10 years of experience, somebody that has a bachelor's degree that just finished might get paid more than you that have like 10 years of actual experience. So people that are starting your career, it's beneficial to have a bachelor's degree. Developers' current roles. So the top role was mentioned is a full stack developer, and then a software engineer, and then a back-end developer, and then various other developers as well that was mentioned. The insight was quite useful I got from this too, which is companies are prioritizing generalist skill sets in their teams. and that reflects in nearly a third of developers working in full stack roles. So this makes it the most common role in the country based on the people that obviously responded. And for developers who want to specialize in either back end or front end, larger companies typically employ more specialists as they have larger teams with more diverse skill sets. So smaller companies, on the other hand, typically look for generalists as they might not have teams that are big enough to accommodate these specializations. Developers most used versus most wanted programming. So Python tops this category for backend, and then we have Go and C# and Java for the rest. Coding assistant use, I think this is the last slide on this section. So the majority of developers have used a coding assistant in the past year. Shouldn't come as a surprise. And as AI tools evolve rapidly, existing tools become more powerful and more relevant. Despite that, one of the interesting stats was about 40% are using coding assistants at work, whereas other 40% don't use them at all at work. So that was the kind of on the ground surveys I wanted to share just on Python careers and the tech hype. I'm going to switch to the education part of this talk and what we do at the CHPC. So if you don't know, the CHPC is South Africa's national supercomputing facility. We provide resources for compute and cloud resources for primarily the academic institutes and research institutes across the country. We provide cloud and compute resources. You can check our website, speak to our colleagues. We have a booth outside as well, represented by Nikki's. If you want to know more about what we do. And just to plug in this is our national conference is happening at the end of the year. So if you're more than welcome to attend that. But what I wanted to mention about the education part is at the CHPC, we have a variety of training and development initiatives. There's quite a long list here that we are quite active in doing. The one I wanted to highlight is a CHPC Coding Summer School, where we collaborate with NITHEX. So this is once a year we have a 2-week, almost like a boot camp, where all the universities across South Africa collaborate. The students are in person at these venues, and we live stream, the Coding Summer School, content, which is, Python, data science, ML content throughout the whole week, throughout the 2 weeks. But the important thing is this is an in-person event, so students have to attend in person. And just to look at the cohort of postgraduates specifically that attend: computer science, physics, math, chemistry, biology, environmental, agricultural, medical, business, and in engineering sciences. So we have a large cohort of people, students specifically, postgrads that do join. This is just a snapshot of what it looks like. So again, it's quite active, and our next one will be beginning of 2026. But how this ties into the talk, again, most postgrads, the top 5 things that we're aiming to gain from the Coding Summer School was, getting better coding skills, data science, machine learning, practical experience, research, analysis skills, network and collaboration. But career advice, there was nothing. There was no, desire to learn anything about, career, how to get a job, or anything related. So if you look at one of the stats we got from all the registered students, which is about 800, majority will be carrying on studying, and after they graduate, which isn't always an option, and then most 32% would want to work in academics, but again, amount of jobs in academia is limited, and then 36% say they want to work in industry. However, they didn't ask for advice in getting jobs in industry. So there's a bit of a mismatch in the in their expectations. So one of our goals through the CHPC education is, again, there's a few jobs in academia, maybe less in industry, but our training goals at the coding summer school is in Python for data science and ML, but we're also focusing on coding practices, skills that will be benefit you in the industry and career advice as well. We focus on team building and networking and mentorship, trying to capture all these concepts in our training. So when they do graduate and they do complete the course, they have some understanding of what it is like to work in industry. One thing we're also trying to promote is isiXhosa, isiZulu, Setswana as a tech language. We've translated our content into these 3 languages. Because the majority of people, students that join the coding summer school and in South Africa, obviously English isn't their first language. So just having the content available for them helps build that, cross that barrier for learning a very technical subject. So one example I had earlier this year with the coding summer school was where we had like a career talk kind of a thing about what they want to do after the studies, and there was a geoinformatics researcher there, and he was questioning if he studied the right thing. He likes Python and does Python, but he studied his masters and whatnot, and I was questioning, there is an academic job for me, but I actually want to do Python. So if you just take a step back and assess, like we had a discussion about that, as a group. I asked him, what programming language do you do research with? Well, I do Python. Okay, so, and what type of application? What skills? It's data science applications. So in essence, you can just reframe your title. You are a Python developer. You've programmed Python you have data science skills. Your application was just, geoinformatics, for example. Just by shifting that perspective, it allows opportunities for, people to pursue, pursue careers that might not, be available to them because they think they're stuck as a researcher or they're stuck in this role. But that's not true. So the last comment I want to just look at is just looking for a job. So this is more catered for, junior engineers and whatnot, students that can't find work, right? If you can't find work, volunteer or create work. So what I mean by that? If you have a friend that has a job, that has a shop that sells something, they have, they have like a hairdresser, they run a hairdresser, whatnot, offer to create a website for them. You're creating work for yourself and you're building your portfolio, asking more people that hey, can I do this for you? Can I do that for you? In the context of Python, just builds your career and you're creating work for yourself and you're creating your portfolio. So other things to look out for looking for a job is stand out to be different. A degree and a diploma isn't always enough. Try to do part-time work. Find a popular language, obviously that's Python. Find tools and framework. Find these tools and frameworks that are popular and stick to it and develop those skills. Keep the basics strong. That's Bash, Python, and SQL from my own experience. Have an active GitHub profile with active projects and links that work. I've had many CVs sent to me, because I want to see the stuff that I've done. I go to the link and the link's broken. They put their website on render, lasts for a day or two, and then that's it. So make sure your links work if you want to, showcase the work you've done. Be active on Stack Overflow and contribute. And lastly, the best ways to learn is to teach. So teach anyone Python, teach your cat even, and be part of communities like the communities we have here and the conferences. That's it. That's what I want to speak about. Hopefully, this was useful speaking about Python careers and in a tech hype. I have a little survey if you can do a QR code. But yeah, that's all I wanted to speak about. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your talk. I think one thing I'll appreciate is when you are sharing your last slide, that is what I do, because 2 years ago I didn't have a job. Then I went back to school, and I think things are working. So it actually works because I'm in school doing something and also organizing events back in Kenya and then trying to speak and continue to learn. So thank you for that. We are accepting questions. We have like 7 minutes.
Thanks, Binyamin. That was great. I think this is maybe as much a question for someone like me as it is for you. I think a big source of employment in South Africa, as well as other African countries, is the public sector. But largely, technology choices in the public sector are often they go through a very enterprise way that I would say is often not conducive to the type of, like, the average Python developer. Do you see that changing? And what do you think, as people in the public sector, we should be doing to trying to make it a more friendly place and more accepting place for Python in particular, but maybe open source more generally?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's important just to have the ear of your managers, directors. So when they're having the decision with stakeholders and vendors, and just say, well, we can do open source as well. We don't have to go this route. So it's important to develop that relationship and just not think about, your own career, but how it impacts the rest of your team. Obviously, doing the enterprise route might be the easiest route, but in terms of the resources we have available and the costs involved, there's so many open source alternatives that are far more applicable, and it gives opportunities for people to as jobs instead of relying on big companies to do the work for you. So it's I don't have a solution for it, but at least just keeping the ear of the higher ups, people that make the decisions, directors and whatnot, let's just try this, try open source alternatives.
Thank you. Any other question? Great. Thank you. Yeah, so another round of applause for him.